Every time you open your mouth to explain yourself, you are handing your power to someone who never deserved it. You think defending yourself is strength. It is not. It is the most precise signal of weakness a human being can broadcast. The moment you react, you confirm that they matter, and anything that matters to you can be used against you. Stop reacting, not as mercy, as predation. Here is what no one will say to your face. The people who provoke you are not attacking your logic. They are not interested in your argument, your evidence, or your carefully constructed rebuttal. They are feeding on something far more primal. They are feeding on your need to be understood. Think about the last time someone dismissed your work in front of others, challenged your decision publicly, or sent that passive-aggressive message designed perfectly to destabilize you. What did you do? You explained. You clarified. You defended. And in doing so, you gave them exactly what they came for, proof that you can be moved. Every explanation you offer is a confession of emotional vulnerability. Every counter-argument you construct tells them precisely where the wound is. You are handing a stranger a map of your interior, marked with every pressure point, every insecurity, every boundary you would sacrifice to feel understood. This is not a communication failure. This is a power transfer. Silent, clean, and almost always irreversible. You are funding your own enemy with the one currency they cannot manufacture on their own, your emotional energy, and they spend it lavishly. Now, understand what actually happens inside a person when they receive nothing from you. Not silence in the passive sense, not the silence of someone who is hurt and retreating, the silence of someone who is simply unmoved, someone for whom the provocation did not register as significant enough to warrant a biological response. This is a categorically different experience for the person on the receiving end, and most people have never considered its architecture. When you react even with cold precision, even with a well-reasoned response, you are validating the interaction as real. You are saying, "This exchange exists, this matters, I am here, and I am engaged." The moment that validation arrives, the other person stabilizes. They have a foothold. They have confirmation that the game is being played. They know how to proceed. But when you offer nothing, no anger, no defense, no acknowledgement, no visible recalibration, something deeply disruptive occurs in their internal world. The human nervous system is not designed to operate without feedback. It is a loop-seeking machine. It sends signals and waits for return data. When you collapse that loop, when you simply do not send the return signal, you do not create peace. You create pressure, invisible, sourceless, impossible to argue against. Imagine you are sitting across from someone in a meeting, or standing in a corridor at work, somewhere public, somewhere the social stakes are visible to everyone around you. This person has just made a comment designed to undercut you. It is subtle enough to have deniability, sharp enough that everyone in the room registered it. The normal response, the one the masses execute on instinct, is to react a tight smile, a verbal parry, a visible stiffening of posture. Every one of those responses is a transaction. They spoke, you answered. The ledger is balanced, but you do not answer. You hold eye contact for exactly one beat longer than comfortable. Then you redirect your attention to something else entirely, not in a performative way, but with the genuine disinterest of someone who has already moved on because, for you, the moment simply did not qualify as significant. Watch what happens to them. They expected resistance. They prepared for debate. They loaded a follow-up. None of it fires because there is no target. The pressure of that unspent energy turns inward. They repeat themselves, escalate slightly, or go quiet in a way that reads to everyone in the room as having overreached. You did nothing aggressive. You simply refused to exist within their frame. This is the architecture of the emotional void, not indifference performed. Indifference as a structural reality. The distinction is everything. because people can sense performance. They can smell the effort behind a composed face. What they cannot detect and what destroys them is the genuine absence of investment. Becoming this requires something that most people are not willing to pay: the systematic withdrawal of approval seeking. You were trained from early in life to read the room, to calibrate your behavior to the reactions of others, to feel the subtle rewards of being understood and the subtle punishment of being misread. The emotional void requires you to uninstall that system entirely. Not suppress it, uninstall it. The person who still needs to know they are respected, still needs the silent confirmation that they have not been diminished, that person will always flinch. And a single flinch is enough. One flinch tells them everything. It tells them the wound is real, the front is maintained at cost, and with enough pressure, the front will break. The calculus of psychological dominance is not about being the smartest person in the confrontation. It is not about having the superior argument ready. It is about being the person for whom the confrontation simply costs nothing. Because when something costs you nothing, it is not a threat, it is background noise. And you do not negotiate with background noise. The insecure, and most people, regardless of their social position, are profoundly insecure, cannot tolerate being background noise to someone they intended to destabilize. The failure to land registers as a verdict, not a neutral outcome, a verdict, one that says, you are not significant enough to disrupt. That verdict, delivered without a word, without a gesture, without anything they can point to or quote back, that is the most lethal thing one person can communicate to another, and you never have to raise your voice to deliver it. So here is your directive, not a philosophy, a behavior. The next time someone moves against you publicly, privately, digitally, in any arena, you will give them a window of 2 seconds of neutral eye contact, and then you will look at whatever is next on your agenda. Not at them, not at the reaction of those watching, at what comes next for you. You will not process the interaction out loud. You will not revisit it in conversation with anyone else in that environment. You will move, and your movement will be unhurried, because unhurried movement is the physical signature of someone who was never disturbed in the first place. That is the execution. Clean, specific, and immediately available to you the next time someone mistakenly decides you are a target worth engaging. The void does not announce itself, it simply is. And those who have walked into it once rarely return. You have now learned how to starve them. What you have not yet learned is what to do when they come back hungrier, more coordinated, more calculated, working in groups. That is an entirely different level of the game, and it starts where the silence ends.